Hey guys, welcome back to the Resilient Show. Super pumped about this episode. If you guys have heard me talk about BioPro, BioPro is a product that I have really gotten behind. I'm a personal user of, and has been a big part of this show. And today we're going to have Dustin Baker on, who's the president and one of the owners of BioPro. And I want to make sure, like up front, I say this. This is not a infomercial for one of our sponsors. We don't offer that to those who sponsor the show. I want to bring Dustin on and talk about BioPro because I believe in the product so much, but I really want to talk to him about entrepreneurship, his experience in entrepreneurship, his life stories, pretty incredible life story, but mostly like I want to talk to him about alternative preventative medicines that are available on the marketplace today in contrast to your traditional pharmaceutical medicines that we've seen a lot in the United States. So this is a topic that I'm super interested in. I believe you as audience, getting to know you guys as audience, will be super interested in, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun and learning a lot, be really informed, which is the point of the show. So Dustin, welcome to the Resilient Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and participate as well. So thanks, Chad.
Well, thanks for, putting out such an incredible product that has got me sleeping again.
Yeah.
Every one of our guests that come on the show, one of the things we give them is a Smith & Wesson rifle, a Vortex optics, some Gators eyewear, and BioPro. And we hear back all the time how can I get more? And some of the guests have actually become ambassadors for you. Eddie Gallagher is like, I think Eddie Gallagher is like every other post.
Really nice Eddie
guy,
by the way.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's really good to our team. He's super nice. He is a genuine guy.
I was having dinner with him the other night in Las Vegas. We were at Andrew Arabito's for Half Face Blades and had a bunch of his friends there, and Eddie was sitting next to me, and we were talking for a long time about BioPro and how much of an impact it's made in his fitness and his overall health. And he was like, off camera, just the two of us talking. And he's like, man, my cognitive ability has improved. And,
I'm a believer 1,000,000%. I mean, I was a user of the original formulations of this product since 2014 when I had nothing to do with any of this stuff. So I'm right there with you. I really do. I mean, it's become my entire life, right? Outside of, family and faith, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't really actually believe in it.
I'm the same way.
Wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Well, you can sleep at night if you're on BioPro.
That's true.
I'm going to read Dustin's bio because I want the audience to really understand kind of who we're about to talk to. So Dustin Baker is a visionary entrepreneur at the forefront of health and fitness innovation with over a decade of experience in the industry. His passion for optimizing human health led him to acquire BioProtein Technology, where he's now the president. And he transformed it into a pioneering company that's reshaping the landscape for natural wellness. With extensive experience collaborating closely with elite professional athletes, esteemed physicians, and international private security and military personnel, Dustin's passion revolves around both optimizing physiological and cognitive potential. His relentless pursuit for pioneering alternatives to synthetic drugs led to the creation of the breakthrough non-synthetic alternative to growth hormone, or HGH, which has revolutionized the industry by offering a safe and effective drug-free alternative, enhancing the lives of countless individuals seeking a safer approach to vitality. His collaboration with industry leaders and his profound understanding of human physiology has shaped BioPro into an unparalleled beacon of innovation. So
I did not write that, by the way.
Yeah,
tip screen for whoever wrote that.
Yeah, it was great. It's great. And when I read it, I was gonna usually try to summarize it down for this kind of thing, and I'm like, no, I want to read all of that because I think it really speaks to what you've created. And one of the things, I want to talk about several things, but one of the things specifically is I'm a believer of creating movements and then attaching the right people to help that movement move forward and not doing wrong. And what I've seen with you in this company, BioPro, is like it's not just a product. It's you created this movement, and all these amazing human beings have felt the same experience you have that I have, and they're like wanting to move it forward. And so I get a lot of messages like after an episode is like, hey, do you really use that stuff? That stuff really works?
Everybody does.
Yeah. And,
everybody does.
Like, is it snake oil? And I'm like, no, I would not, same as you, I would not promote it if I didn't believe in it. And so it really is a big deal. And, or else we wouldn't be doing this episode right now. So I definitely, like I said, I don't want to make this infomercial, but I definitely want to get into BioPro. But before we do, I want to learn how you became like an entrepreneur, your kind of life story, your origin, not BioPro's origin story, your origin story, and where you came from.
I mean, I mean, I have done interviews, I've done different things like that. It's not my forte. But it's funny always hearing like the bio read is because it just blows my mind that when we get into like, I'll start before this, but like, I mean, I was a glorified janitor is how this is basically all has started in the basically the gym and fitness space, right. Legitimately. And janitors get paid. I didn't even get paid, but, so it's just wild to hear that and to hear that it's a movement and stuff. Like I'm sitting here smiling and it's like really unbelievable. Cause like, I still don't believe it almost to this day. Like my wife still is like, you have a great, like we're just talking like, you have a great business. Like all these things are going. It's just mind blowing. And I think it's, when you're passionate about something and you care about the people that you like help, not to like toot my own horn, but like we do. And like people that work for us, like we care, like that's how we build our team and do that stuff. It almost happens. I'm not going to say without trying, but it almost happens kind of in that. That's how it feels, right? Because it happens organically. Yeah.
Yeah. That's organic.
So, I mean, how long do you have for the story? I mean, I was born in Michigan. I grew up in Tampa. I was, just kind of a normal kid. I grew up with a single mom. My grandma raised me. I had 2 siblings. One of the interesting things though is like I got into health and fitness, but as a kid, I was like a fat kid, right? I was like a fat ginger kid. I think my ID might still say this, but like when I was 16, I was 5'3". I was 220 pounds. One day I got off the plane to like see my dad. He didn't recognize me when I walked off the plane. Like I was a short, fat kid, right? So I had a lot of that. And so when I got older, I grew up a little bit, grew into my weight and stuff like that. But like when I was a child, health and fitness, like it didn't have a part in our life, if that makes sense. Like our lives were, how do we get to church and school on time? Like, how do we have enough gas money to do that? Like, we were focused on like survival, right? So those things were never really taught with us. They were never a big part of our lives. I played organized sports, but I was a kid in baseball who got his 3 guaranteed innings and then, sat the bench, right? I mean, we had fun, but I didn't have kind of those things. I didn't have the health and fitness type stuff in my life. And I think that played a role to kind of how I got to here, because those bad habits that I picked up as a child with not having good habits really evolved into being a young adult with really bad habits, right? Drinking, smoking, all this nonsense that starts to compound. And when I was in high school, didn't really care. I mean, I barely graduated. I always make the joke like I can barely read or write, let alone run this company. But squeaked by. I went to college, but I never really actually went. I kind of just paid the student loans off and then, dropped out. And my life became a life of really like drinking and partying. I mean, early 20s. And then I had a friend who looked at me one day because I was moving around. Like I didn't really, I didn't have anything. I think my parents still
floundering.
Yeah. How do I get $40 to pay my cell phone bill or buy a case of beer? And that's really what it was. Right. And so, I had a really good friend, and his name's Mike. And I always call him out because I think people who make impacts in your life, I think they need to, whether he knows it or not, like to hear that you're grateful and that they had a huge impact in your life. And so I always call him out if it's an interview or stuff. His name's Mike. He's a firefighter in Michigan. And he was really into fitness. And he would train at a gym and train people and stuff. And I never worked out a day in my life. And one day he came to me and he was like, hey, dude, in so many words, why don't you stop doing that? The life I was living, and why don't you just come like work out with me one day? And so I did. And that was the first time like I worked out in a basement. And after that workout, I quit drinking at that point for the time being. I quit drinking at that point and focused all my time and energy, because I have a lot of it. I was unemployed. A lot of time and energy learning everything I could about working out, human physiology, food, nutrition, things that I had never known. And it kind of just really gave me, I think, like a purpose. And it gave me something that really interests me that I didn't have. It gave me something I could work for that I couldn't scam my way into, like all of these different things. And I really took to it. And there's 2 major changes in my life, like paradigm shifts of way that I was living. And that was number 1 by far. And that led me to actually, I started working out at a gym, and we worked out. He brought me into his gym that he was training in. It was a performance style gym. They were doing Olympic weightlifting. And the guy that owned that gym was a ex-Olympic decathlete. He trained for, I think, Athens and Beijing. I could be wrong, but that's the way I remember it. His name's Joe Sobolski. You can look him up. He's in Michigan. He does training for collegiate athletes and stuff like that. Brilliant mind a brilliant mind of how to train humans in like performance athletics.
Right.
And so I started working out at that gym. He owned that gym. He and I never really actually spoke. And at that time I did have a job. I was working in like bars and stuff like that. And I was paying my gym membership. Now at this point, my whole life was focused around fitness and working out and then working on the side. Well, I lost that job. Got into an argument with manager over something stupid. Lost the job. So I went to Joe because I couldn't afford the gym membership. I think back then it was like $180 a month, which was like crazy back then, right? And I was like, hey, Joe, you don't know me, but I can't pay you. I can't pay you gym membership, but I really don't want to leave. Like, I love it here. I'll take out your garbage. I will, I'll sweep your floors. I'll clean toilets. Just, let me like work for my gym membership. He's like, okay, cool. So that's what I did. And then I started showing up at his gym to just work for free at 7 a.m. Back then, you couldn't literally get me out of bed for anything before 12:30. And so like I'm at this guy's gym, 7 a.m., free of charge, doing whatever I could. And so he took me under his wing. He started teaching me things that I didn't know anything about. I grew up separate from my father. My father's not a bad guy. He just, he had a different wife and stepkids and stuff like that. I grew up separate. I grew up with my mom and my grandma. So I didn't have that male like role model in my life, right? I didn't, like, he was there from a distance, but I didn't have, I didn't have the dad coach. I didn't have the dad at baseball games. I didn't have someone teaching me kind of like the way of the world from a male perspective. I kind of was on my own in that regard. And a lot of my life I was on my own because my mom worked 16-hour days and stuff like that. So Joe was the first guy to take me under his wing, whether he realizes it or not. And he used to teach me things like, he started teaching me how to like weld. And which is a funny story about that. If everybody knows like those assault air bikes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So before those existed, Joe would send me around the state of Michigan to find the old gold Airdynes that were in like grandparents' basement or in somebody's garage that never used. And he would take these bikes and he would program them into workouts, and he would attach bike monitors to them, like so you could actually quantify the amount of work that you're doing. And we used to weld wheels on the bottom, like basically rebuild what an air bike is today before those ever existed. And they would be programmed to work. Like, he was way ahead of his time in that respect, but he used to teach me how to weld and fix equipment and build things. Then I got really into the sales and marketing side of stuff, and I wanted to help him grow his business. And we just had different ideas. And at that point he started paying me.
I'll say at this point, you're probably working for him, right?
Yeah. Like I think one time he paid me like $500 a month. And when he paid me, I remember like thinking in my own head, like, okay, I can make money at this. Like, this could be a real job. And I was totally cool with $500 a month back then, So I started doing that, but that only lasts so long. And, 500 only gets you so far. And so I had to move back to Florida, and I started serving in restaurants again. And the third day I started at this restaurant, right when I moved back to Florida, I met a gentleman who owned a gym, and I was like, I want to come work for you. He's like, okay, cool. Show up here. Showed up the next day. He wasn't there. I sat around for like 3 hours waiting for him to get back, conned my way into another job. I was like, hey, I'll fix your stuff. I'll clean your barbells. At this point, I know how to fix equipment and do things. So I'll fix your stuff. I'll clean your barbells. I'll clean your toilets, take out your garbage. And he paid me an hourly rate. And I was like, oh, I'm killing it now.
Yeah.
And so I had a job.
Making $600 a month now.
Yeah, something like that. I was making $15 an hour. And then he, within several months, I was basically running the place. I got to enact a lot of my marketing and sales tactics for, growing the business. It was working. So he kind of stepped out, and I was running his gym. And the reason why I tell a lot of those stories is in that same business park was the lab where the original formulas of what became BioPro were being created. So it kind of leads into the BioPro story from there.
Did you meet an investor? Like, you're making $15 an hour. How do you buy into?
Oh, we're still years away from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, how do you buy into?
That was never a thing, right? This is 2014.
Okay.
So a lot of the guys that worked there, like at this lab, like manufacturing space, they would work out at the gym. And so you get to know people, you get to know stuff. The owners would work out there. And I was, I'm a little different now, but I was much louder back then. I was very, look at me. Like, I was loud. I was obnoxious, I would say. And so, I would meet these guys and if there's one thing I've always learned, it's, if I have any type of superpower whatsoever, it's to identify opportunities, not only be able to identify opportunities, but to execute on those.
Yeah.
So if I find something I want to be a part of, or I could, grow my life, career, whatever that is with, I'm going to take advantage of that opportunity.
Sure.
And so those guys were working there. Well, I wanted to know, how can I get involved? What can I do? I was taking their products, and plus I couldn't really afford them back then, to be very honest with you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool. Can I work for you guys for products, stuff like that? And that relation developed, and by the time that relationship was had matured, I was helping them create marketing materials. I was inputting them into our facility and threading them in with people because at this point I was training individuals now. I'd gotten certified and done some stuff. So I was threading them into the individuals I was training. I would train other salespeople, if you will, like other athlete ambassadors and things like that, to help promote their products. And then I got picked up by after that gym, I got picked up by, there's a national franchise that does professional, collegiate, and youth sports training. And they had a location in Tampa, and I got picked up by that location to run their sales and marketing, be their director of sales and marketing for that. And we were training NFL, CFL, collegiate athletes. We were prepping guys for combine. And so I took the products and then threaded them into that facility. And in that process, and they did extremely well, and the athletes loved them, the general population loved them and did well. That progressed into, at that point, I was creating my own facility, my own concept, my own fitness concept. And I threaded the products into that facility. And that was a different demographic, right? That wasn't professional athletes. That was what I would consider your weekend warriors, your general population, 35 plus years old, 35 to 55. The products did exceptionally well. And that I had started my own product line, but it basically was a private labeling of the existing formulas. Mm-hmm. And that I parted ways from that business venture in 2018. And I went back into football training with that company because they wanted me back. And basically, I was not happy. I was not happy in that new venture. It was not turning out to kind of what I was signed on to do. And I knew I had to leave. And I had a mentor who is now my business partner, who basically said years before, hey, your next venture, if you have an opportunity, I would like to, I'd like to know about it, I'd like to participate. Well, the relationship and the previous ventures that I was in the last ones didn't exactly go super well. And so I would call him for advice. I'm like, hey, this isn't working out. What do I do? And I was like, I think there's an opportunity, because I knew the gentleman within this company, within BioProtein Technology. I think there's an opportunity that they're trying to exit. It was owned by two brothers. The brothers had a split. And, one of them got a certain part of the business, the other got a different part of the business. And that part of the business that had BioProtein Technology was that gentleman needed, I think, some assistance. I think there was, some managerial and operational things that were not doing so well. I mean, you're a business guy, you understand that. I mean, businesses aren't typically for sale they're only for sale for two reasons. One, they're wildly successful, and a PE firm comes in from the Northeast and says, hey, the big boys are here.
Yeah, we're
take it. We're gonna do this for real. Or the other opportunity is it's needs a rehabilitation.
Right.
This was the latter. It needed a rehabilitation. And so called my now business partner and said, hey, I think we got an opportunity here. I went in and did what I do and hey, how do I end up with this? And we had a deal inked within 3 weeks. And that was December 1 of 2018. And now we're almost about 6 years ahead. And we have new formulas and new things. And I mean, it's been a wild ride ever since.
Yeah. So I guess, can you explain, I try every week to explain what BioPro is. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. I have said, and I asked you before the show, if this is old Eastern medicine modernized and packaged in a way that is meets the modern day consumer, the modern day athlete.
Yep.
Also like an alternative, a safe and natural alternative to HGH.
I mean, all those things are technically accurate.
Yeah. So give us the more accurate description of BioPro.
It's actually very simple.
Okay.
So as you mentioned, it's an alternative to human growth hormone. Human growth hormone is the master hormone that your body secretes for metabolic function, for workout performance, for healing muscle tissue, soft ligament tissue, tendons, even sexual function, energy, different things like that. But what people don't know is before your body actually ever uses that hormone, it has to be converted into what are called growth factors. Growth factors are just cell signals. That's all that they are. They're technically called protein cytokines. Okay. They're little cell signals that get sent out into your blood and they trigger the cellular function that you're looking for. So if you're breaking down muscle tissue those cells have to replicate and multiply to then heal the area or for muscles to grow. Well, it's a growth factor or a protein cytokine that triggers that cellular differentiation and multiplication, right? If it's the skin in your face, that is you have skin cells in your skin, your epidermis, collagen cells, etc. As you age, the way that your body creates those growth factors goes down because human growth hormone decreases every year since you finish puberty, sometimes by 50%. So the lack of those growth factors to then continue to trigger the cellular differentiation multiplication is why your skin starts to sag. So what we're doing is we are taking growth factors or protein cytokines, which are just complex amino acid chains from another mammal, and then we are giving them to you, a mammal. They're molecularly identical to what your body takes. So all we're doing is offsetting what your body no longer produces. So your growth hormone goes down. Therefore, the growth factors that are produced from that growth hormone go down, which is why we age. That's why we start to feel like crap. That's why you feel great at 25 when you just finished your peak growth hormone levels. They start to decrease. Then you hit 40, you wake up, you're like, man, I don't look like I used to look. I don't feel how I used to feel. Well, all of those cell signals that used to trigger all of these functions are no longer you no longer have as many. So all we're doing is giving you those cell signals directly. And because it's a natural source and it's because it's technically a protein, it doesn't cause the negative side effects like injecting a synthetic hormone would that's going to shut down your natural production. Like we work on what's called the right side of the liver. We work after conversion into those protein cytokines, not before. Before the liver, you're looking at manipulation of glandular function, the glands that create these hormones. You're suppressing the natural secretion of those hormones. You're causing potential side effects that I'm not really, as a user, I'm not really interested in participating in. And so that's why I relate so much to our own product and why, it matters to me. Because
and the alternative to this would be actually injecting a synthetic human growth hormone.
That's true. Yeah. Or a peptide that would manipulate the actual secretion of that hormone, right? So where you have a couple different options. You can spur human growth hormone naturally. Right. You can do that. It's very well proven scientifically, especially high intensity interval training is proven to spur growth hormone. So this growth hormone is a pulsating hormone. So you can spur its growth, its secretion, especially through exercise. You can improve growth hormone through nutrition, like many other types of things. You can improve the times at which it's typically secreted, like your sleep, right? You can improve what people call sleep hygiene, temperatures of rooms, the type of environment you sleep in, not being disturbed. All those things can help you.
Cold water therapy, I heard, is another.
There's a whole thing about certain temperatures that are not warm of how sleeping is better for your sleep cycles, right? So improving the 2 sleep cycles where your body naturally secretes hormone, including testosterone. Men, it's 70-90% is in 2 sleep cycles: SWS sleep, slow wave sleep, and REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, which everybody wears their trackables. Everybody likes their fun stuff. Go track them. I mean, it's pretty wild how little of time you spend in those cycles. You can improve those, and you can immediately improve hormone secretion, testosterone, growth hormone, all kinds of stuff. Beyond that, you have synthetic treatments. You can go to a physician, depending upon what state you're in. If we're going to talk specifically about growth hormone, it's extremely highly regulated. It isn't exactly like TRT, which, I'm from Florida. TRT is you have a McDonald's, a Starbucks, and a TRT clinic. Yeah. You get your coffee, you get your breakfast, and then you get your testosterone supinate. But
physician's assistants, like open clinics.
100%. Which for better or for worse, because you have access to experimental or alternative medical treatments that you might not get from a primary care physician, depending upon the area you're in. But if you're looking at growth hormone, that's very, very differently regulated. We have physicians that offer growth hormone in the state of California, and those are $20,000 a month protocols. anywhere from, in Florida, maybe around $3,000 for growth hormone after you include all the fixins you need to do it. But if you're out west where things are extremely highly regulated, or you're in other countries like Canada, and I don't want to speak on Canada's medical, regulations because I'm not very well versed on them, but they're very similar to California in the respect of what you're allowed to do and what you're not. I mean, you're looking at, they're not available. And so
unless you're paying, like you said, a
ton of money, dude.
I mean, I remember
imagine.
Liver King's kind of controversy came out.
$11,000 a month.
Yeah.
He was probably getting a deal.
Yeah.
I spoke to a doc, not me, but I was dealing with one of our clinical representatives that deal with our physicians. And we're working with a doctor right now because they love the product, but they offer growth hormone treatments, 20 Gs. That's insanity. I mean, that's crazy prices, right? So you have those options. They're available to you. The peptide is another option, which again, it's not a replacement of growth hormone. It's a manipulation of the actual gland that produces growth hormone. And so it's kind of like squeezing a lemon. You're squeezing more juice out. Mm-hmm. There's good and bad things with that.
When you talk about peptides, you're talking about like Smorelin.
Yeah. Ipamorelin, Smorelin, stuff like that. And then but a lot of the issues with that is now the FDA has since stepped in as of November of 2023, where they have specific regulations and bans on certain peptides and stuff like that. So if you're ordering them, the process of ordering them or knowing where they're coming from is a little bit in the gray area now. Mm-hmm. Not that you can't get them, not that you can, but where are they coming from? I mean, now you're talking about tapping into markets overseas, and you can't always guarantee efficacy, purity issues when you're going to different types of markets overseas. We all know how that turned out last time.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and then the last option is.
Oh yeah, you can take BioPro. Yeah,
BioPro's
BioPro's a great alternative. I'm not a guy that I can assure you I can get it if I wanted it, but I'm not really a big fan of pharmaceuticals unless they're medically deemed necessary. I'm not a big fan of being dependent on anything synthetically or anything for that matter that I'm ingesting. BioPro is non-dependent, so it gives me and a lot of other guys who aren't necessarily interested in taking the needle an alternative that they can take to get similar benefits without a lot of the side effects. That being said, most of the clinics that offer our product and a lot of the guys that use our product are on synthetic treatments as well. And that's fine. If they're medically necessary and you love that stuff, go for it. I mean, I'm not opposed to those at all.
Both.
You can do both. In fact, a lot of physicians show improved blood panels after they add BioPro, and that has to do with the symbiotic relationship of testosterone and growth hormone. You have to have adequate growth hormone or IGF-1 to utilize testosterone, whether it's natural or synthetic, optimally. So a lot of guys will take TRT treatments and they don't get the benefits that they're expecting because everybody thinks it's like, it's coming through needle, it's a drug, it's going to work. Well, that's not actually entirely true. If you don't address your growth hormone or IGF-1 levels, which is insulin like growth factor number 1, the science is clear that you cannot absorb the testosterone optimally. Again, whether it's natural or synthetic. So
Sure.
A lot of physicians will add the BioPro as a ancillary product, an additional product to help the absorption rates of testosterone, which could mean one of two things. One, you might not need as much, right? So you might not need as much as a synthetic drug. 2, guys who don't respond can help them. And 3, this is something we're exploring more and more as we're getting a lot of females from our clinical side where physicians are prescribing BioPro for females, which is clearly not our target demographic, but what they're finding is one of the number one treatments for women going to perimenopause, menopause is actually testosterone treatment. And a lot of women aren't actually, real thrilled about hearing that and or injecting themselves with testosterone. So they're able to add BioPro into the regimen so they can avoid the testosterone treatment and get the same types of benefits that they would have gotten from a TRT treatment. But it's clearly much less invasive and it's there's no dependency associated with it, and it works pretty fast. And we're getting like crazy results with that right now. So that's a new
awesome.
little event. It's the first time I've ever said that out loud in public, by the way, because I was so.
Ladies,
you heard it first here at Chad. Always consult your physician first. I should look into look into the camera. Consult your doctor first, please.
A lot of times I'll ask about certain people with different things, or several times I've reached out to you and asked, or Cody, and you guys have said that consult your physician. So synthetic HGH compared to BioPro, what's the potency difference, the results difference?
Well, that's not a question you can kind of answer directly. And the reason why is because how much HGH are you taking?
That's what I was gonna say. It was, you got people that would abuse, right? Abuse and take
So
way more, right?
What
Now
I will, I'm only going to answer that anecdotally, because if you start to throw out specific things, it's always going to be something else. And I'm not a physician, and I know how to tread lightly on certain issues because I'm not a doctor, and I cannot prescribe, I cannot give medical advice. Nothing of what I'm saying is medical advice. It's so anecdotally, what I will tell you is, for a lot of guys that have used HGH in the past, they prefer the BioPro for several different reasons. One is, one of the fastest things that occurs when you start injecting growth hormone for a lot of guys, and again, we're not talking about specific amounts.
Right.
Aside from that, is water retention. So that's been a specific thing of guys that have used HGH, is they don't get the water retention from BioPro the same way they would, yet they feel the same benefits. The other thing is, a lot of people don't know this, is when you start to use growth hormone, you get carpal tunnel-like syndromes, and you get issues with your hands and your wrists, and you're not going to experience any of that with BioPro. There's not even ever been one report or anything like that ever of anything like that.
For being a jiu-jitsu athlete, I've known, I mean, jiu-jitsu, the sport of jiu-jitsu is as bad as probably bodybuilding when it comes to abusing steroids and you know, certain things. And so I've heard that a lot from guys who are doing HGH, is they're getting their elbows are getting tight. They're especially all the pressure in jiu-jitsu in your hands.
I can't even imagine. I never thought about that. But
so like a lot of guys were complaining about when they were on HGH, they would get, you know, pain, like a lot of joint pain and stuff from it.
I mean, I'm not saying HGH doesn't work. I'm sure that it does, but it's,
I mean,
you know,
especially
a lot of things work,
right?
Yeah.
Like, I've never been in a fitness for aesthetics. I've been in a functional fitness.
I hear you.
And so I certainly would never want to take anything that would prohibit me from being most functional that I could be.
I agree with you.
What about the source, right? So obviously we're talking synthetic HGH, right? The source is from a lab. What's the source? What's the ingredients in BioPro?
We're extracting growth factors, protein cytokines, from another mammal.
Okay.
The mammal is not harmed. The mammal actually lives 4 to 7 years longer on the farm than they would in the wild.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say what kind of mammal?
Yeah, we use cervidae species, so antler-bearing mammals, specifically the American elk.
Okay.
So there's one organ in the entire mammalian animal kingdom that fully regenerates, and that is an antler,
right, from
an antler-bearing mammal.
Every year it regenerates.
Every year. And so we use the American elk. The antlers grow 1 to 2 inches a day. They can grow up to hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Like, it's like faster than grass grows. And so when they're growing and they're regenerating, they're inside of what is called velvet. And inside that velvet is porous living tissue, just like your arm, right? And so you can actually harvest this material, and you can extract it, and you can extract and separate the usable from the unusable, and higher quality than not, clearly. But and you can take it then you can ingest it as a human being, and you can get the same exact type of benefits. But there's a very specific process to do it. Unfortunately, when you start to get into that world, there's a lot of alternative or different style of products that kind of piggyback on science that they can't actually use because they're not producing it the same way.
Right.
The way that we do it is similar to a PRP process of harvesting the material, putting it through a very specific extraction process that separates good material from bad and makes it in a way that a human being can actually ingest it and absorb the, for lack of a better term, active ingredients.
Is that when you say bioidentical, bioavailable? Is that
bioidentical and bioavailable is different, but yes, the absorption rate, the way that we're doing it, so we want you to absorb the active ingredients directly into the mucosal lining of your mouth, which is why you hold it under your tongue instead of just, spraying it in your mouth or taking a pill or different types of weird things. We're trying to avoid the digestive tract. The tissue in your mouth is the fastest way to get into your bloodstream other than
anal.
What's that?
Anal, right?
That's correct. Well, it's actually.
I was gonna say. I mean, I heard
that's
that
actually. So it's exactly the same tissue. The
right.
tissue is exactly almost the same. So yes, we don't make suppositories. We don't make injections. And if you were to put this into a nasal spray, which is another way to do that, oh man, I can't even imagine what that would feel like. But
I can because it say hold it in your mouth for 90 seconds. Yeah. I followed the rules, right? I put it in my mouth for 90 seconds, and I had to sneeze. And I was like, I was, going to bear through the sneeze, and then the sneeze came. And so I pinched my nose to keep it from close my mouth. And then my nasal cavity got filled with BioPro. and it felt like I got pepper sprayed.
I've been exactly there where like you have to sneeze and it's like, and you just hold it in and you figure out how to keep it down.
Oh,
I don't want to waste it. It's
I
like,
know, right?
yeah.
I didn't, and it went in my nasal cavity, and it was like fire. For those that want to try it, like it's there's a reason that it has a burn to it at first, and you get used to it.
You do. The point is you have to express those blood vessels. You can't just expect them to optimally absorb anything. So we have an ingredient we add, comes from France, and a very specific region in France. But it expresses the blood vessels in your mouth so that you can actually absorb the product directly in your bloodstream and get the best effects as fast.
Creates like a little burn.
Yeah. A lot of people really like that. They look forward to the intensity. It's kind of part of your thing, like your daily routine, right? Yeah. I've had texts before from some of the guys that like, oh man, I run out. Like I really miss the intensity. It's like, dude, you want something to wake you up in the morning. BioPro is the way to go.
Yeah. So when I first started using it, I didn't do all the research because it was so highly recommended by Greg Lappin and Josh Guerrero and some of my buddies, and it had been pushed on me for quite a while, and I had kind of avoided it. And then when I tried it, I ended up feeling great, and you guys shipped me some, but I didn't know there was a nighttime product. And so I had all these boxes, and I was taking it, and I got so sleepy. I'm like, I was like, what was wrong with me? I'm like, want to just lay down in the middle of the day, and I realized I was taking a nighttime.
The nighttime formula,
yeah, nighttime. I'm like, oh,
you wouldn't be the first guy to do that. When I travel, I take the vials and I just put them in my bag, and I can tell the difference just by looking at them. Like hold them up to the light. There's a different consistency, and I always worry about that. I was like taking mine this morning. I'm like, don't take the nighttime one. Don't take the nighttime one. Don't take the night. I was thinking about. I was like, I'm going to be passing out at this guy's show, but I didn't take the nighttime one.
What I did was so when I open the box now, I take a black Sharpie.
You're not alone.
I do a line across. I do a line across all the lids for the nighttime.
You're not alone. You're not alone. Other people do the Sharpie method as well.
Yeah. So yeah, it's but I was. After getting through that, I was so pleasantly surprised with the way the nighttime one functions.
Well, at least you know that it works.
I mean, it works, yeah. And I went, this is the thing I brag about most about BioPro all the time, is I went from sleeping like 4 hours a night to getting a full like 8-9 hours of sleep every night when I take it.
I mean, sleep is, and we sell stuff, right? But sleep, just improving your sleep, like forget BioPro entirely, improving your sleep is the closest thing to taking a performance enhancing drug as you possibly could do if your sleep is trash. If you actually monitor your sleep cycles, another thing people don't really realize is that as you age, similar to hormones decreasing, your body's ability and the length of time you spend in deep sleep actually decreases every single decade that you age. And so a lot of people, like they don't actually look at fixing their sleep. Like, I'm just going to go to bed earlier. That's great. Most people don't actually fall through that. We all have crazy lives. We have busy schedules. You got kids. Man, I got a toddler. Like she's on all kinds of crazy like we're not on the same sleep schedule. Let's just say that. But they don't attack what we mentioned earlier, which is the two deep sleep cycles where these hormones are produced. And if you can optimally then improve those, you can improve those from whatever, you're going to naturally improve your natural function, which I think people should be addressing first and foremost. Like, yeah, we sell products and we do that stuff, but there's so many other things you can do. And I'm not the crazy guy that like has blackout curtains or like there's no shortage of anything you can buy to do all kinds of stuff like sleep and everything like that. But at least understanding and giving yourself a baseline and a quantitative result to where your sleep is at, and then working slowly to improve those things, I think is something everybody can do. That's 100% free. 100% free. You can do it. You can start tonight. It just takes, maybe a little reading and a little action.
This is the daytime one. It has some benefits on it. Anti-aging, metabolism, libido, immune system, which everybody could use that right now. Every year we got a new virus, right? Your skin, cognition. So that's a lot of products that talk about cognitive benefits. I know Joe Rogan's big on what's it called, the alpha brain.
Yep.
Like he said, I don't speak, I don't get on a podcast before, and I've tried stuff and nothing's really. I'm like, I've never really noticed anything. And when I first started BioPro, I wouldn't say I noticed anything, but then I took like I took like 2 weeks off. I ran out, like missed my shipment from you guys or something, and my fault, I'm sure. But I started feeling like foggy, and I'm like, I wonder if it was because I wasn't taking my BioPro, and then I got it back in. I took it, and I just felt like it was like a restart, and then I recognized it. And so there was a huge. This is what me and Eddie were talking about. Huge cognitive benefit from it. What's that come from? What is like what's the source of that?
You could tie it to a few different things.
Okay.
The way that I would tie it is as you age, and this actually I believe ties a lot into metabolic effects.
Right.
So growth factors specifically help improve two things that work hand in hand. One is insulin resistance and blood sugar utilization. Okay. So blood sugar utilization, insulin resistance is how your body utilizes the food that you eat as energy. So if your body has issues or it's hard for it or it's not getting triggered, right? Let's just stick with the triggered word in the cell triggers to utilize blood sugar or uptake efficiently, then things like brain fog, lack of energy, those things inherently will take place. So IGF-1 specifically, there's lots of science behind it to show the improvement of blood sugar utilization and fixing of insulin resistance, which is why individuals will see metabolic effects, which is why they lose weight that they magically couldn't lose before. It's not that they weren't trying. It's not that they weren't doing what they needed to do. But sometimes some things are outside of your control, or to be fair, sometimes we cause issues like metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance by, pharmaceutical drug use that we use that are prescribed by our physicians, or sedentary lifestyle, poor diets and habit, like it compounds and like it's snowball effect, right? And then you wake up 44 years old and you don't have the energy to drive, you can't lose body fat. And so if you're able to improve some of these things, even incrementally, right? Like there's no silver bullet that you're going to magically do out there. At least that's going to be healthy for you long-term.
Right.
So with the growth factors, you're able to improve a lot of those things.
Yeah, I'm super proud that Smith & Wesson Firearms is a supporter of this show. I have been shooting Smith & Wesson Firearms since I was a kid. This is one of America's most patriotic companies that has been around 170 years. The Resilient Show is honored to partner with Smith & Wesson. I personally use Smith & Wesson Firearms every day for my everyday carry. I keep Smith & Wesson Firearms in my home for my home defense. When I'm out on the range practicing, it is a Smith & Wesson at the end of my grip. So check them out, and I hope you join me in carrying one of America's most iconic firearms. Yeah, it's so important for me, I'm always doing public speaking. I'm doing this podcast and writing books, and I'm, a lot of times I'm pushing my pace is like 1,000 miles an hour. So to have that cognitive clarity and and get rid
Chad,
of the brain
I'm right there
fog,
with you,
man.
buddy. 100%.
Yeah, it's something I don't want to do without. So that's all. We're talking about the benefits of it. Who's it for? Because I think a lot of people listening. In our audience, I'm worried they think this is just for athletes.
No, that's fair. Athletes get a lot of benefit from it. Athletes market the product really well. Like who wouldn't, right? Everybody loves boom, pow, Shazam, to see on the internet. So it's great. But realistically, hormonal decline is happening to everybody. And I hate to say that the product's right for everyone. It is and it isn't in the sense that we really focus on individuals over the age of 30. Mm-hmm. When we started or when we acquired the company, we kind of focused more on 35 to 40 years old. But the science is very clear that the decrease in hormones in men specifically is exponentially dropping. So the rate at which you would have saw a hormone decline, and I think the study was back in 2021. They did a study to show men's hormonal levels with a 20-year-old and a 60-year-old. And in the men today, at least from 2021, have a 20-year-old has the same hormonal levels as a 60-year-old from the year 2000. So the rate at which hormones are decreasing are exponentially increasing. Mm-hmm. There was even a study that came out in the UK of showing by mathematically showing that in the United Kingdom by the year 2043 that all men would, in that specific area in their test pool, all men would need some sort of medical intervention to even conceive, that the sperm counts were getting so low that they could literally track the mathematical graphs down, right? So we look at individuals who are suffering from that hormonal decline. Is that everybody? Everyone at different rates. So we now look at individuals from 30 plus years old. And if you are younger than that, and you're experiencing some of these symptoms, that hormonal decline kind of throws up a red flag, we might be for them as well. But we really focus on individuals living their everyday lives, 30 plus years old, who they don't look like they used to. They don't feel like they used to. They look in the mirror and they don't have kind of the same type of, jive as they used to have. And that's part of life, but it doesn't have to be really at that extent.
You can slow it.
Yeah, you can slow it. You can feel, but you don't have to feel like crap all the time. You can feel better, right? And like, that's what I'm really passionate about as an individual is when I was in the fitness space, right? We kind of like ran through that. I took over this guy's gym. I became a trainer. I got certified. Like, that's what I really thought I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I really did enjoy that. I mean, that kind of crafted most of my personality. It crafted how I operate my business, and it gave me this launching pad to all these other things. What I realized was the people that would come to me to get help from a training perspective were always the same. They were individuals, now give or take a few years, but they were typically individuals who were 40 plus years old. They were going through some sort of something in their life that was cause them potentially negative change, divorce, something intermarital, something like I hate to use the word midlife crisis, but like something that they were struggling with internally, right? Other than just fitness. But it was the same way fitness kind of came in and changed my life from being kind of a complete dirtbag. Yeah. They reached out and came to me to help them, right? And it became so much more than just working out. And that is the same type of individual like I really like to help with BioPro, and kind of like what still warms my heart, because like you shouldn't have to like, I'm a man, right? I'm 39 years old. I look in the mirror like everybody else. I'm not 25 anymore. You shouldn't have to look in the mirror and like not like who you are internally, externally. Like there's always things you can do. And so I used to be able to help guys specifically through some of those hard times in your life, kind of waking up when you're 40, something like things are different. They're changed, right? You're not 23 running around partying, having fun, like getting 2 hours of sleep and waking up and be good to go the next day. And life is different at 40 and even 35, right? And the ability to help more guys other than just what was in like my 8 hour or 12 hours days, and get those same types of kind of testimonials back, and how you can help individuals and they're excited about the product and they're excited about how that makes them feel. And like one of the guys, world champion, Eric Raposo. You know Eric, right?
No.
He threw Greg Lappin. Okay.
Oh,
I met
yeah.
Eric through
Okay,
Greg
yeah,
Lappin.
yeah,
Eric
yeah.
Raposo, like 7-time world champion.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about athletes, and you're talking about how like, oh, it's not just for athletes. We'll take it like this. Eric Raposo, 7-time world champion, black belt in jiu-jitsu, works with, him and Greg Lappin had that gym in Louisiana, right? Give him the product because, we use athletes to promote the product. We're not hiding anything.
Sure.
You would think his testimony would come back and be like, oh yeah, I won my 8th world title and I did this. He didn't care about any of that. What he would use was he would work at the academy all day, and he'd come home and he would have to like take a nap because he was exhausted. Yeah. And then his kids would be doing whatever. And instead he was able to have enough energy, and he's like, to play with his kids and to be present with them. And his wife literally looked at him and said, like, you've become a better father. And not that BioPro is helping somebody become a better father, but if it gives them a little bit of an incremental increase or an extra tool in their tool belt to do things that are important to you or to them, that is why I do what I do. And that's why I actually care. And it makes it fun. You know what I mean?
On the athlete side, you guys have reached into, I know you mentioned, doctors are prescribing. Yeah. But you're getting more and more outlets, which shows that you're a trusted source. And the UFC recently partnered with the UFC Gym, right? UFC Gym recently partnered with BioPro. So that's pretty credible testament.
Well, so I purchased BioProtein Technology, which is the company that makes BioPro Plus, okay? I actually own the parent company because we have other brands and other things that we do. But the original company that I purchased was a medical company. It did not sell products to, let's just, for lack of a better term, the public. We sold to physicians, and physicians sold those products and provided them to their patients. Okay. The way that BioPro was created was there was one formula. I think I'm going to be wrong. Let's just say 27 or 30 different formulas that, came in part of the acquisition. And different strengths of different formulas that had been created, all for the intent and purpose of having alternative formulas to pharmaceutical drugs, right? So if you have somebody like myself who isn't like, I'm very adamant and vehemently against utilizing pharmaceutical drugs for just lots of personal experience, very negatively in my past. And so I don't want anything to do with that. Like, not for me personally. I do when it's medically necessary. Have I taken antibiotics? Yeah, sure. I take antibiotics if I need to. Have I taken other things to get through, medically intervene? Yeah, absolutely. But from a day-to-day life, like, I will do anything I can to not take a pharmaceutical drug. I don't want to be dependent upon anything. So the company that we purchased were providing these products. The company was creating alternatives to pharmaceutical drugs. The original formula that has become and evolved into BioPro was a formula that, when I was looking at the brand and I was going through of like, what is most valuable, like, you know, a typical acquisition. Okay, let's get in here and let's get our hands dirty and see what's going on and where can I make the biggest impact? There was one formula that would stuck out that the most respected and the highest esteemed physicians, the MDs, the DOs, the orthopedic surgeons, what were they? They were buying this formula not to produce, because orthos don't sell you products, right? They do surgeries.
Right.
They don't sell products in their office. Like, they were buying a formula for themselves. I remember a specific orthopedic surgeon, I won't say where or what, but he has multiple clinics, was ordering from us because I wanted him to provide the product to his patients. And he's like, well, we don't really do that. I'm like, okay, well, why are you buying it? He's like, for my shoulder. I hurt my shoulder. I want to do this. I'm like, you're an orthopedic surgeon. What are you doing? He's like, it works. And then there was multiple physicians like that were just extremely highly esteemed. They weren't like, they were very well respected. Mm-hmm. And some of them had national presences, and they were ordering this product, and I needed to know why. And that's really when I started to get my hands involved into this specific formula and the evolution of this formula. And that's why our company has shifted so much so towards what has now become BioPro. It's because, you know, you can love something all you want and you can really believe in it, which I do. But when you have nationally acclaimed, very high profile medical doctors and DOs that are purchasing for themselves and love the product, I mean, you really have something there. Right. And that's when I started to really dive into the science, and BioPro began to evolve. And now it's a formula that's, I mean, I have all those other formulas. I mean, we maybe make a couple, but BioPro has been shipped to over 40 different countries on every continent other than Antarctica. We have physicians in South Africa. So it's really taken on a life of its own. The movement's been wild. But yeah, a lot of people don't know that it was a clinical brand and still is, first and foremost. But that's why we bought the company, is we wanted to get what I believed in. I believed in the products. I used them. I wanted to provide them to people who didn't have access to them. Direct to consumer. That's correct. And we still do both. Yeah. We still do both.
So you got, like I said, it's with, you partner with UFC Gym, UFC athletes, or any athletes, right? That's under like strict drug testing, USADA. I know there's a couple other regulatory bodies, but you were able to take this on. I know some UFC fighters that are currently taking this, and they're not, they're able to get through USADA testing and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can't pop a drug test on it. There isn't a test that exists to pop a drug test.
Okay.
When you look at, number one, the product itself is not explicitly banned by USADA. The raw materials that we utilize are not explicitly banned by USADA. So take that for what you will. Yeah. The method of action that we use, there isn't a specific test that would pop a drug screening. So you don't really have anything to worry about that. Right. What I will tell you is, and to be fair, there are organizations that specifically do not allow the use of our product and the raw materials, et cetera. Like the NFL is one of them. So I have friends in football. I've worked in that space for a while, and I'm not saying that they do take it. I'm not saying that they don't take it, but you need to, if you're an athlete, and you're concerned or worried, you should do your own due diligence. We do work with professional athletes. We've worked in Canadian professional sports, different types of things. Everybody has their different organizations. They have their own different guidelines, and you need to make sure, because I tell this to guys all the time too that ask me is, will you pop a drug test? No. But if just the inherent stress of worrying about that is going to be so high that you just don't use the product, because it's the adverse effect of that is a spike in cortisol, which shuts down all your other natural hormone production. Yeah. And it's just, it's not worth it, dude. Just live your life, man.
You talked about doctors, physicians using it themselves and then turning around, not offering it to their patients and doing orthopedic surgery. Essentially not throwing stones at anyone. That's an ethical issue. In the pharmaceutical space, I think there's a lot of ethical issues. I know RFK, by the time this episode comes out, hopefully has been confirmed. He spent his life going after big pharmaceutical companies that that are for pushing pharmaceuticals over preventative care and alternative care and all these things. And I mean, you existing in a space of, I know there's different terminology for it, but I would say preventative care, alternative care as an alternative to the big pharmaceutical industries. And how much pushback do you think there is, maybe not against BioPro, but just in the pharmaceutical industry against alternative treatments?
Depends who you're talking to. In the medical space, I use, and this is just how I look at it. You have two different sides of medicine. You have kind of physicians that are stuck in their ways. They're very old school, for lack of a better term. You know, they follow what they were told. They don't really veer off and look into what you would consider alternative treatments and therapies. And then you have individuals that are way on the other side of the spectrum that's all that they do. And there's never a reason to ever medically intervene and use any type of synthetic drug and whatever. And I think and this is a personal opinion, everything we've gone through in the last few years has shown, at least in this country, and actually, I mean, I talk to guys all over the world, I think the general public, and I think I'm very fine saying this is a good thing, is people are taking a vested interest in kind of doing their own research, which I think is a good thing. I'm not saying it can't lead to negative consequences. It can. That's why having, using some tact and some discernment in this area is very good. But I think you should be questioning kind of the status quo for the way that medicine has been for a long time, because there is pushback on experimental or alternative treatments that are not as available as maybe traditional medicine has. And what you're seeing is, because of that push from the public, more physicians that were probably way over here on this other side of never even looking at other things, or the medical industry as a whole is now shifting towards what I would consider the center, which is really good.
Yeah.
And that's called the integrative space, where before, people who practiced functional or integrative medicine were looked at as like quacks.
Right.
10 years ago, 15 years ago, this whole paradigm shift has shifted towards a really good blend of both, where you get medical intervention when it is deemed necessary, and you're getting the best part of technology and medical technology and availability of things that you might really need and can help you, but you're also having very well educated, extremely well-versed and trusted physicians looking into alternative care, because they know that not everything on this side of the spectrum, or on the, let's just say the old school side of the spectrum, for people who, maybe can't see me or whatever, they're now getting kind of the best of both worlds. And that's really where we play in, is why, our product is, we don't just sell this anywhere, right? There has to be some sort of a nurse practitioner or a medical professional on staff, medical director, MD, DO, et cetera, because we play in that middle space of, that integrative space, the middle ground of functional and medical help. And I think it's very good for at least the American public to have a choice and have a say in kind of how treatment is. If you look at generations prior to ours, it was kind of like, and you would never even question this, of like, here's a pill for this, here's a pill for this, this is your way, this is your thing, take this, take this, take this. And you have your parents, your grandparents, and they're on, the pill cases, dude, is out of control. Like, that isn't health to me. Like, that isn't healthy.
No.
Never questioning those things or even understanding why is insanity.
Yeah, I mean, in the veterans care, space, we have veterans and active duty military that shows up at Mighty Oaks, a program that we have at Mighty Oaks, and they're on over 20 pills a day for like one diagnosis of PTSD. That's trying to them taking a medicine pill for this, but this pill has a side effect, so they take another pill for that. Next thing you know, 2 years later, they're on 20 pills a day, and they're like in their 20s. Like 20, 30 years old. It's insane, as opposed to like doing alternative, like just moderate changes to lifestyle. I mean, or going in and, because your blood sugar levels are high, instead of saying like, they'll diagnose you as a diabetic and put you on insulin,
100%.
as opposed to saying, hey, maybe you should start eating a little bit differently. And like you said, some of those homeopathic doctors and stuff like that are kind of deemed as quacks when they're just telling, hey, how about eat better?
There's a really great middle ground. And I get questions from friends and colleagues in different businesses of like, where do I go? What do I see? Who do it is? And like, you really need to, the same way, I mean, you in a business, you have, you need to, the same way you interview your employees or you're looking at building your team, that's the same way like I look at my life is I am not an expert in like a lot of things. So the way I build my life is the same way I build my business, is looking for the best team player to be part of my team. Whether that's, we joke around as like my consigliere, but he was an attorney that really helped me and mentored me through a lot of, business ups and downs, and has become a really good friend. And, he's on my team because I know I can trust what he's saying, and he helps guide in a certain part of life. When it comes to medicine, I found a physician that I love, that I drive way out of my way for, that people from all over the country go to for his specialties. Because when I speak to, and he's an MD, he's a very, very, very well respected. He's got more certs and more plaques on his wall than anybody I've ever seen. He donates his time to the military. He's always got videos of him in and out of helicopters, teaching docs, like wild, crazy stuff, like really cool. I go to him because he's that perfect integrative middle ground of like, he's the most educated physician I've probably ever met, yet he understands the functional approach of looking at the root causes first. And when I go in to come see him, he's not going to give me this, and this without addressing what I can change in my own life first before he just starts injecting you with things and giving you pills. And so individuals should look at their lives in the same way of like, I should be interviewing for these positions. These are the most important decisions you could make in your entire life. Right. Who is administering you medical care, preventive medical care? Who's going to keep you around or keep you healthy through the, through those final years of your life, like on the downslope of things, that's when you should be enjoying all of the fruits of your labor, your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, your family. Like that should be the time where you should be in the peak best physical shape of your life, because you're going to miss out on all of those. Yeah. I'm thinking about this right now, like all of those incredible experiences. Like you want to experience that from like sitting in a chair, or more importantly, you want to experience that and become a potential burden on your family, that they have to take care of you now because you didn't make the appropriate choices, or you didn't make changes you could have made to yourself before. And I know that's like, maybe it's a little dark, but it's the truth. Right. And so when you're looking at medical care, you should be interviewing individuals like you interview the people that control your cash. Because to me, I could make more cash. It's a lot harder to change things that cause, medical things, health and time. Yeah, dude, it ain't the same, man. And so that's how I look at it. I interview those individuals. I want to speak to them. And if they don't have time to talk to you, or they give you gripe about questioning things like that, then you should probably be looking in a different direction, because if they don't care enough to address your concerns, or they scoff at them, no matter how crazy they might be, do they actually really care about your well-being? Yeah.
Look, several years back, my blood pressure started getting high, elevated. And I'm a lifelong athlete. I eat really well, and I really take care of myself. And I had a fundamental problem with my blood pressure. I'm like, there's no way my blood pressure should be getting this high. Even I was in my mid 40s. Yeah. But I was not okay with it. And I went in, they put me on medicine, and I had a really big problem with being on medicine, like because of it. I didn't like the way it felt. And just fundamentally, I'm like, I'm too healthy to be restricted to medicine. What are some other things I could do? So I started reading, and wanted to try the carnivore. I wanted to try to go carnivore because it had some good benefits. I was reading about Paul Saladino. I was reading his book. And so I went into my cardiologist that had me on these medications, and I told him, and he's like, you can't do that. Like he said, no red meat, high veggies, no salt. And so Paul Saladino saying, all red meat, no veggies, high sodium.
What's funny about those red meat studies?
Yeah.
Does anybody ever question what meat they see? Here's the thing about studies is you have to understand what the study is, not just the conclusion, like who is the test pool, right? And what are they studying? Where are they getting the
meat?
Correct. And you know where they got a lot of that meat from? It was hot dogs and like processed meats and stuff like that was the red meat, but there's trigger terms that are noteworthy, for lack of a better term. And, it gains a lot of popularity, and that's the whole new thing, but it's insane.
Well, this doctor, he's literally like, I'm like, okay, you're reading off a chart and you're prescribing based off of, this is the symptom, and so this is the solution and the medical. And I'm looking at this guy, and he looks like he's about to die. He's probably like in his mid 50s, and he's like, I'm like, why am I listening to this incredibly unhealthy person? When, I got this guy, Paul Saldino, who obviously cares about his health. And why am I taking this advice? So I went against his advice. And I didn't just dump the meds down the toilet. I slowly trickled off of them. But as soon as I cut out the vegetables, the red meat, this is for me, not for everybody else. I'm not giving medical advice here, but I added the sodium and I went to Celtic salt. There's this lady from, I think she's from New Zealand. And I listened to something about her Celtic salt pitch. Anyways, I did that and my blood pressure dropped to where it was like below, like it was like I had to get off the medicine.
Yep.
Because my blood pressure had dropped so much. Adding red meat, cutting out the vegetables, adding salt, completely opposite of what he told me. And within a year, I got off the blood pressure medicine. So yeah, that's
there's a nugget of advice that you said. I don't know if people grabbed it or not, but basically, when you looked at your physician and you're like, why would I be trusting this guy? Well, take that for like life advice in general.
Yeah.
Especially young people who I think in today's day and age are kind of like they're trying to find their purpose or they're trying to become somebody, they're trying to do something, and like be very cognizant of who you take advice from. If you can't look that person in the face and want to trade places with them immediately regarding what they're talking about, I'm not saying switch lives, you probably shouldn't be taking advice from that individual. And that goes for a lot of people, family, friends, et cetera. If you're an individual trying to do something or start something or produce something, you got all these yappers in your ear telling you stuff that isn't beneficial to your life. Really take a hard look on who you're listening to. And if you, again, wouldn't trade places with them, whether it's your money, whether it's your health, your business, you probably shouldn't take advice from them.
Yeah. That was this guy.
I hear you.
He had a certificate on the wall, but he also, he was not a healthy person.
Well, med school, the things that you study, and I am not a doctor. I did not go to med school, but I talk to doctors, not as much as I used to, but my entire life for years was talking to doctors every single day. And talking about exactly what we're talking about, the amount of time that they spend in nutrition and lifestyle education is minute.
Right.
And so you have to understand like who you're getting advice from. And this is why interviewing individuals who pull large levers in your life, you should validate.
Particularly general practitioners, right? Because they have such a broad spectrum of things they're covering.
It's not to be like against them. Like, how could they possibly know everything about anything? Nobody does.
Right. They're following protocols. Like, check.
Exactly. The GPs are designed to do what GPs do, which is to identify certain things about you and then refer you to specific specialists. Right. There's nothing bad about GPs. I have nothing bad to say about. I'm not against physicians at all. I think they're incredible, but it's who do you choose is important.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to say it's a negative, but it's one of the negatives I've heard about BioPro is it's expensive.
It is.
It's not $20,000 a month expensive, but it's expensive. So as people might be listening and they go to the website and they look at the price, I want to discuss that.
Yeah.
And why it has the cost it has and the investment in that cost.
Sure.
So
it's not inexpensive to make.
Yeah.
If you want, it's not inexpensive to make. It's a very specific process, and the harvesting of the raw materials, to do this the right way, to actually make it work is an expensive process.
Yeah.
And we're not in a position to, I guess, give it away for free. I mean, you have staff and stuff like that, but the product works. It's expensive to create because it's everything from the harvesting to all the way to the glass that it's in is pretty much from an industry standpoint is the most expensive thing you could possibly do. I'll break it down. So, let's look at the world of supplementation. And so in supplementation, when you're looking at formulating products, you're looking at buying bulk raw materials. Okay. And they come in, they're sold in kilos. An average cost of, and we're really generalizing here, but for dramatic effect, if you will, typical cost per kilo of normal supplements that you and I probably take every day, or most people take every day, is about $10 a kilo. Okay. When we started this company, you're talking $4,400 to $5,000 a kilo to harvest the material that's actually usable. And so people are like, well, why does your product work and other stuff doesn't, or what's nonsense? It's exactly what I just told you, is because there is a very specific way to do this, a specific time, a specific process, all of the time. Like after it gets formulated, it has to sit and go through another process for a certain length of time. Like all of these steps that we take that are the hardest, most expensive ways to take, every single vial is hand poured because it has to be. The way that we produce this and manufacture it is at the highest possible level that it is. We exceed every FDA regulation through the manufacturing process, through the extraction process. There's a reason why the product works and why people are like, oh, it's, why some people think it's crap that have never tried it. And then why you hear people go all the time, they're like, this stuff has changed my life. It costs money to do that. Mm-hmm. To do it the right way is expensive. It just is what it is. And so in order to get a product that is as effective as BioPro and to get it to the people that want it, the price clearly, relates that. It is what it is.
By the way, I don't think it's expensive for what you get out of it.
It's about $9. It's not, $6 to $9 a day.
Yeah, depending on if you're doing day and night, right?
Oh, not including the night. Yeah, but
the night one's quite a bit cheaper.
It's a third the price.
Yeah,
but if you're looking at it from a total spend from a synthetic treatment, at best, it's a tenth of the cost.
A Starbucks coffee.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
What's the Starbucks coffee cost?
I mean, you travel a lot, go to the airport. It's half that. So,
Yeah. By the time, yeah. But I mean, again, I don't think it's expensive for what it's worth, especially when you talk about other supplementations. But it was one of the things I wanted to address because I've heard that. And
absolutely, it is expensive.
Yeah,
I mean, you typically get what you pay for. You get things in life fast, easy, or cheap. You can only select two.
Yeah, I love that.
I mean, the classic line. I didn't coin that, I didn't do that. Hopefully, someone doesn't have that trademarked, and I'll get a letter in the mail. But
I use it all the time. It's one of the best.
Okay, send the letter models to Chad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can only get two. I want to talk about because of your life and the way you grew up and work, like grinding your way into where you are today. That's a story of resilience, and it's the Resilient Show. Just want to see if you could just share some insights and wisdom with the audience on being resilient, being as an entrepreneur, building something that you believe in, and the grind of doing that, and leaving a legacy behind.
Where do I begin? Yeah. That's a whole lot of questions.
Yeah, I guess what would be your biggest lesson? I guess to summarize it, what would be your biggest lesson you could pass forward on the resilience of taking something, of just achieving something?
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go two different ways with this. The first, I believe, is the most important. So I told you because I want to stress this, like. Yeah. I mean, I was not a good human being, like in my early 20s. Like I was a pretty trashy individual, and I'm not proud of that individual.
That's the picture you painted. I was kind of getting some visualization as you were talking about it.
I mean, it is what it is. I had long, I was just, I'm not proud of that individual, but I wouldn't change not one thing about my life. I had some unique circumstances growing up that most people probably, very few, have never or won't deal with. And that was, interesting. But sorry, I get sidetracked when I think about some stuff. But the first paradigm shift in my life that kind of got me out of that rut was working out and fitness. And that gave me like a purpose, and that gave me something to drive for and strive for when I was kind of just like a drifter, like before, like I really was. I was drained on society, my parents, everything. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have been my mother or father during that time. So much so my mom and my stepdad at the time took out a life insurance policy on me. Like it was, dire.
Yeah.
So the first thing, that big first paradigm shift, which got me out of that rut, was the health and fitness type stuff, because it gave me purpose. It gave me something to build. It gave me something that I had to like work for. And I think before, like I was really good at talking, and, I had a smile, and I could, kind of weasel my way through things and get through life, however I needed to.
Yeah.
But fitness, nobody can, like your health and wellness, your fitness, like you can't buy that. You can't swindle away you're into it. You have to like earn it. And that was the first thing I think I ever really learned of like earning and putting effort in on my own, not being forced to or not being forced to.
Right.
The second, so that helped me in my entrepreneurial journey and getting started because it gave me a basis of what I never had before, which was structure. Mm-hmm. So it gave me a structure of, this, then this, then this, then this, and the kind of the pieces would fall into place. And it was the basis of the structure for everything else I would work on, whether it was business or learning about marketing or sales or whatever that is. The second biggest change, and this has happened after I purchased this company, was my faith and full, complete submission to God. And I grew up Catholic. I went to an all boys school. My mom killed herself to send me to that school. So I had a phenomenal education. We never missed the one thing. We were late to a lot of stuff growing up. We never miss church on Sundays. And I'm very grateful now in my life that we never did that. But basically I had fallen away from the faith, or apostatized, if you will. I always believed in God, but I believed in you're a good person, you're all set. You know what I mean? I hold the door for people when they're coming in behind me. I'm good. I can, God will get it. He's gonna let me do whatever. And we purchased BioProtein Technology. I was doing that, but it wasn't actually really that successful. I never really got it to it was a profitable business, but it ain't what we're talking about now. And we went through 2019, 2020 type stuff. The world was clearly changing. And I think for a lot of people, the veil was taken away from their eyes of, the world being this hunky-dory, beautiful place and everybody gets along and stuff like that, And I really started researching and getting into philosophy. And first I started with Stoicism, and it started really leading back to the faith, which I didn't have any, looking back. And I'm skipping over a lot, but these things started to really compound. And I may have changed my life from being gainfully employed, being, if you would like to consider it a successful entrepreneur. I had gained those things, but I didn't ever really fix myself internally. I would still consider myself not a good individual. I'm not saying ethically from the business side. That's not what I'm talking about at all, but I'm talking about from a moral perspective.
Right.
And one day I was sitting in my office and I was doing the classic entrepreneur grind. I would be in my office. I'd work out 4:30 a.m., 5:30 a.m. I'd be in my office before anybody would ever get there. And I would read every morning, philosophical stuff, life stuff, things like that. Self-improvement, if you will.
Yeah.
And one day, this was right in the middle of 2020, probably in the beginning of right when it was right when the campaign was still going around from after Trump's first term, and the world was just crazy. And I remember thinking to myself, if all these awful, crazy things were going on, and there was this much evil that existed, there has to be an equal opposite good. And so something came over me, and I dropped down to my knees and I prayed for the first time. I can honestly look back and say I had never really prayed ever in my life and meant it. And I did at that moment. And I asked God to show me he was real and prove to me he was real. And at that moment, he really did. He did something very specific. And I started weeping, but I wasn't sad. It was a really weird experience. And from that moment, the deal was, if he showed me he was real, that I would submit myself to him fully, completely, entirely. And I would spend all the time that I spent on building a business, working out, entrepreneurship, and I would shift the paradigm to make him the center of my life. And I would learn everything I possibly could about him, the church, everything I could, if he showed me he was real, and he did. And that was the real paradigm shift of my life. And everything changed from that perspective. And I gave up drinking. I gave up partying. I gave up everything, all the wild, kind of crazy lifestyle stuff, young entrepreneurs and people want to do.
Yeah. Start adding money to some misguided behaviors. And
I did. Yeah. And I would have been dead 100%. Yeah. So the point is when I finally did that and I really submitted myself to God, and that was the deal I made. And I've stuck by that. I've stumbled about 3 times. I know specifically what I did. And I went back on my word 3 different times specifically. And, but all in the first couple of months. But my life, my business, God gave me everything I could ever want. And it's almost like I definitely try, we definitely work, but it's like freakish how much things changed. And that was the biggest paradigm. That was what gave me, that finally filled what I had been searching for forever, I think, and filling that with business and with, attaining of material wealth or those types of things. Like, that was the big paradigm shift. That was the second, and I don't think anything will ever clearly ever overcompensate for that. But from that point, overshadow that. From that point forward, everything I had ever wanted and ever asked for, God gave me. Whether my wife, my daughter, the business. I live a pretty great life. I get to do what I love the most. I enjoy what I do. Somehow I'm here in Texas, like hanging out with you, like all of these things, these crazy, like knowing guys like the Gregs and like all over the world, like all over these different places, all these crazy people. Like it's in Lappin. Yes, Greg Anderson, Greg Lappin. I call them the Gregs, but meeting these different people and like the experiences. You can't. I'm sure maybe somebody could, but you can't really pay for them in the way that God has guided this business in my life. And I think that's a huge part of it is we're very open, and the people that work for us and like who we are, what we believe in, that's part of it. We do not hold back on any of those things. And I truly believe in that. And I believe as long as I continue to do those things and I hold up my end of the bargain, like God has done way more than his end, but that has completely changed my entire life and this business. Yeah.
Well, a business, it's one thing to be a grinder and successful at business, but another thing to be successful at business and something you truly believe in and love. And it was very clear that, and you couldn't answer the question more perfectly to close this out, because the show is a resilient show, right? Yep. And one of the reasons outside of, a partnership that I really want to bring in a show, because, in learning about you, getting to know you and just seeing how like focused and passionate, authentic you were. And then the one time we were on the phone, you told me about a little bit of your personal story of where you came from. And I'm like, man, this is just, really in line with what the audience needs to hear because of where you are in your life. And you just really encapsulated the 4 pillars of resiliency. You talked about your mindset and in that shift in your mindset, being someone that would see an opportunity, seek the opportunity, have the right mindset, the perspective, the willingness to work hard. You talked about your like physical health and how much fundamental that was important to gaining your physical health in order to get you moving forward and bring the right perspectives. Socially, the people you've surrounded yourself with along from the beginning, along the years, and then spiritually, a spiritual foundation, which I think is the most essential part of being a resilient. And when you brung all 4 of those things together, you found what
I didn't even realize that. I should have filled out the card differently.
You took all 4 of those things, and that's I think when people in their life. They go through phases and you'll have one of those pillars and then you'll fall off. But when you have all 4 of those things at one time, that's when you truly find, I wouldn't say just joy, but fulfillment, and you find your purpose and you're able to just crush it. And that's what you're doing, man. It's super cool.
I appreciate that. Don't you typically give people like a gift, like a BioPro in there?
Well, yeah. So I had this product, BioPro.
Well, hold on. I have something for you. So this was made just for you.
Okay.
And this is, there's this guy, and he seems like he's a nice guy. He's just trying to make his way in the world, and he makes really incredible pieces.
Okay.
And I've bought similar things for other guys, and I felt pulled to get you one as well.
That's the first time somebody's got me a gift.
I got you a gift. So this is by a guy named Alex, and he makes these. He hand makes them, custom makes them, and this is a Deus Vult rosary.
That's crazy cool.
And
oh my gosh,
I don't know if you have a rosary or not, but they're a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
And
you have one in your pocket right now. Right?
I do. I carry it everywhere.
Yeah.
I carry it everywhere, and I believe. You're a Christian. You're a spiritual guy. I don't care how crazy I sound. The distance between the spiritual and physical world is non-existent to me. And what's really cool about the rosary is, for centuries, it's been used, especially in battle. Battles have been won that were all of which been lost. There's a really cool story from like the 1500s. You should check it out about the rosary and the power that it has. And I carry it with me everywhere, because the way that it's described is it's 2 things. One is you wouldn't leave, your home without your sidearm, without your primary. that you need for physical protection. The rosary is exactly that, but for the spiritual world. They say it's like hanging on from a rope that goes directly to heaven that you can hang on to at any point in time. And this was blessed by a true Catholic priest, a true priest with all of his, you might not know how important this is, but it's actually a really big deal. It goes back centuries and centuries, but has all of his full orders to all of his holy orders to actually do that, which most priests actually don't have these days. So it's very special, and I wanted to get that directly for you.
And this is a thank you so much. This is really special. And this is
it's a Crusader helmet.
Crusader helmet. Yeah. Okay. And this is the tattoo that our new Secretary of Defense has. That everybody. what is this cross? There's a name for this cross?
There is, and I
don't know it either. I just know that Pete Hegseth had it tattooed on him. And
oh, really?
And they were giving him a hard time about it.
You guys know
the name of? They were calling him a white nationalist because of it. And they
realized, well, I would hope not. Exactly.
Exactly.
That cross goes back, I think, to the 4th century, the 3rd or 4th century.
Right. Yeah.
So what's really cool is so Catholic knights, and this is in the Middle Ages and stuff like that. They would, when they would pray before battle, they would beat their chest against their armor. So they would pray for us, pray for us, pray for us. And so that cross and other crosses, depending upon the battalion that they were with, would be the same thing. And they would ask for the intercession of the saints to pray for them and pound their chest and cross.
It's called the Jerusalem Cross.
The Jerusalem Cross. Yeah, they actually had it on President Carter's, the front of his, the pamphlet for whatever the pamphlet's called. And it was on the front of there, and they kind of made a point of it that they were giving Pete a hard time, but then President Carter had it on the front of his pamphlet for his funeral. But man, I really appreciate this. Super special.
I was really excited to get it for you. So,
oh man, that's really cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. We have some gifts for you from our sponsors, BioPro. I don't know if you heard of BioPro.
No, I haven't. I only in the last hour or so.
So yeah,
I'm regifting it to one of your team members. She really wanted it.
So of course, we're super thankful as a show that you support the show and support some of the stuff we do, and then just that you make a great authentic product. Drinking some holy waters.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've never seen that before. It's pretty wild.
That's I mean, the guy who started it, those other water can companies that don't support good things, and he's a Christian, and he's like, hey, I want to do something I could build a company and actually support good causes.
100%.
So the company gets behind. They've donated to Mighty Oaks. They donated to the Dream Center in Roswell, New Mexico. So yeah, it's really cool guy. And then Gators Glasses, Smith & Wesson Firearms, and Vortex Optics. I know you said you didn't have you want to build that M4, so this is mine. We can't give you this one today, but this is the same one you were talking about getting, the Volunteer, Smith & Wesson Volunteer. 14.5 inch barrel. We have a Gemtex pressure on it.
Really?
Yeah, we have we could configure your optics the way you want, but Vortex, this is the AMG by Vortex, which is a holographic with a 3x power on the back. So depending on what you want, we could help.
The guy that owns this company is a really good dude. His name's Seamus.
Seamus.
Yep.
Seamus is one of the most incredible human beings that I know.
And I have nothing to do with Vortex whatsoever. But and I know we're closing up a quick story, but he's just a really good dude. He actually has been buying BioPro for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
He came through our customer support system, and somebody was helping him. And he, anyway, he's a very. I found out about it and all this different type of stuff. But he's actually a really, really good dude.
I mean it when I say it. He literally is one of the best human beings I know. Yeah. His wife. He's got 3 boys.
If you're looking for optics, support that guy's company. You're supporting an overall very good organization. You
talk about that pillar, that social pillar. God's put me in a unique place in my life to where I really don't have to work with anyone, and I'm blessed to be in a position I can work with people I choose to work with, and I get to work with the people that I would be friends with, like you, and the people that I would hang out with, and are like minded and in the same trajectory of life. And so I could tell you first, like you, Scott over at Gators, Mr. Mike Smith, and Kyle Tingle at Smith & Wesson. Seamus, Terry at Vort. These are my friends. I mean, I just spent a week with Kyle and Mark Smith for the inauguration and SHOT Show. Like, they're just incredible human beings. And so that social circle for me is just getting tighter and tighter and better. And I'm blessed to be surrounded by good people.
You're appreciated.
You included, man.
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate
You
it.
included. So, well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you'll go out and get some BioPro. Give it a try. I typically don't do my coupon codes, but I think we have a code that we'll have down in the show notes for this show so you get a discount if you want to give it a try. And if you have not yet, like, comment, share, subscribe. Please subscribe wherever you're at. And we're about to jump into some Patreon questions. So we're going to continue on with Dustin. And if you're not already a part of our Patreon family, then we want to get everybody deeper involved in the resilient community. So jump over on a Patreon. The link to join our Patreon is in the show notes below, and we will see you there. Stay resilient. Hey, what's up, resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You could join for $15 a month and get behind the scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.